You know, people ask me all the time, what's the point? What does it all mean? Will I be remembered? And I find this question absolutely fascinating because it reveals something profound about how we think about ourselves and our place in the universe. So let me tell you right away, the answer is almost certainly no. Nobody will remember you in 200 years. And that's not only okay, it's actually wonderful. And I'm going to explain exactly why. First, let's get the facts straight. Think about this for a moment. Can you name your great-great-great-grandfather? Most people can't. That's only about 150 years back, maybe 200 if your family had kids late. Now, I'm not talking about some famous person. I'm talking about regular people, the kind that make up 99.9% of humanity. Your ancestor, whoever he was, he lived a full life. He loved people, he worried about things, he had dreams and fears and moments of joy and despair. He was just as real as you are right now, just as convinced of his own importance, just as worried about being forgotten. And here's the thing, you don't even know his name. Now multiply that by everyone. There are 8 billion people alive today? In 200 years, almost every single one of them will be completely forgotten. The vast, vast majority of human beings who have ever lived are completely unknown to us now. We're talking about roughly 100 billion humans who have existed on this planet. How many can you name? A few thousand maybe? If you're a real history buff, maybe 10,000. That's 0.01%. The rest, gone, vanished from collective memory as if they never existed. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is what I really want to talk about. Most people hear this and they get depressed. They think, well, what's the point then? Why should I do anything? Why should I try? Why should I care? And that reaction tells you something very important about how confused we are about what matters. See, we've got this idea stuck in our heads that mattering means being remembered, that significance equals historical footnote, that the measure of a life is whether future strangers know your name. And I'm here to tell you that's completely backwards. It's absolutely wrong. And understanding why is one of the most liberating things you can possibly understand. Let me explain this the way a physicist thinks about it. When we study nature, we're always looking for what's actually there versus what we imagine is there. We're trying to strip away the human projection and see the thing itself. So let's do that with this question of memory and meaning. What are we actually talking about when we say we want to be remembered? Well, you're imagining some future person, someone who doesn't exist yet, someone you will never meet, never speak to, never interact with in any way, and you're imagining that this person knows your name and maybe knows something you did. And somehow the fact that this stranger in the future has this information in their head is supposed to make your life right now more meaningful. When you put it that way, doesn't it sound a little bit crazy? Think about what you're actually doing. You're trading the real, immediate, tangible experience of being alive, of loving people, of learning things, of experiencing wonder. You're trading all of that for an imaginary scene in an imaginary future where an imaginary person thinks about you for maybe 5 seconds before moving on with their day. It's like refusing to eat a delicious meal because you're worried whether someone 200 years from now will read about it in a history book. It makes no sense. Now let me tell you what does make sense. What actually matters in a way that's real and concrete and physical. You exist right now. You're a configuration of atoms that for a brief moment in cosmic time has organized itself in such a way that it can think and feel and experience the universe. That's already amazing. That's already almost impossibly unlikely. The odds of you existing at all are so small that if you really understood them, you'd spend your whole life just being astonished that you get to be here. And while you're here, you interact with other similar configurations of atoms, other people. You exchange energy and information. You change each other's states. When you talk to someone, really talk to them, you're literally rearranging the neural connections in their brain. You're changing the physical structure of their mind. When you love someone, when you teach someone, when you help someone, you are having a real physical effect on the universe. Not a symbolic effect, not a metaphorical effect, an actual physical effect. Now here's the beautiful part. Those effects propagate. They spread out. The person you helped helps someone else. The student you taught teaches others. The child you loved grows up and loves their own children. It's like dropping a stone in a pond. The ripples spread out farther and farther, changing and changing until you can't trace them back to the source anymore. Eventually, the ripples become part of the general motion of the water, indistinguishable from everything else. And here's what's crucial. The fact that you can't trace them back doesn't mean they didn't happen, doesn't mean they didn't matter, doesn't mean they weren't real. This is something we understand very well in physics. When you heat a cup of coffee and then let it sit, the heat dissipates into the room. Eventually, that energy is spread out so evenly, so diffusely, that you can't point to any particular bit of warmth in the room and say, that came from the coffee. But the energy didn't vanish. It didn't stop being real. It just became part of the general state of the system. And that's exactly what happens with human influence. It doesn't disappear. It just becomes unattributable. Let me give you another way to think about it. You know those people who are remembered, the famous ones, the ones in the history books? First of all, most of what's remembered about them is wrong. History simplifies. It creates myths. It turns complex human beings into simple characters in simple stories. The real person, with all their contradictions and doubts and private moments, that's just as lost as everyone else. What's remembered is a cartoon, a simplified version that fits a narrative. But even more important, think about what they gave up to be remembered. How many of them sacrificed real happiness, real connection, real love for the sake of ambition? How many of them were terrible to the people around them because they were so focused on their legacy, and now they're dead. They're just as dead as everyone else, and they don't get to enjoy being remembered because they don't exist anymore to enjoy anything. Meanwhile, they missed out on so much actual life in pursuit of this imaginary future fame. Here's something that really drives this home. Let's say, just for argument, that you do something that gets you remembered. You cure a disease, you write a great book, you make some discovery. 200 years from now, people know your name. Congratulations. Now what? You're still dead. You don't experience their remembering you. It doesn't change anything about your actual lived experience. The only experience you ever have is the experience of living your life day by day, moment by moment. And every moment you spent worrying about legacy is a moment you didn't spend actually living. Now, I can already hear the objection. People say, but Feynman, you're going to be remembered. You won a Nobel Prize. You made important discoveries. Isn't that different? And I'll tell you very honestly, I don't care. I really don't. I didn't do physics so that people in the future would know my name. I did physics because figuring out how nature works is the most fun I know how to have. The pleasure was in the discovery, in the moment of understanding, in the joy of seeing a beautiful solution to a puzzle. That happened in real time while I was alive in my actual experience. Whether anyone remembers it later is completely irrelevant to the joy I got from doing it. And here's the thing that people really don't understand. If you do good work, if you pursue things because they're genuinely interesting and important to you, not because you're trying to be remembered, that's when you actually have a chance of doing something memorable. But it's a side effect, not the goal. It's like happiness. If you chase happiness directly, you rarely get it. But if you get absorbed in something meaningful, happiness often comes along for the ride. Same with being remembered. If that's your goal, you'll probably fail, and you'll definitely be miserable. But if you focus on doing things that matter in the immediate real sense, if you focus on actually understanding things or actually helping people or actually creating beauty, then maybe, as a side effect, someone remembers. But who cares? You already got the good part, which was doing the thing itself. Let me tell you about something else that's important here. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. Modern humans have been around for maybe 300,000 years. Writing has existed for about 5,000 years. And you're worried about being remembered for 200 years? It's nothing. It's a blip. It's so short that from the universe's perspective, it might as well be instantaneous. And here's another thing. In about 5 billion years, the sun is going to expand and swallow the Earth. Everything on this planet, every monument, every book, every hard drive, with every piece of recorded information, it's all going to be vaporized. Even if you manage to be remembered for 1,000 years or 10,000 years or 100,000 years, eventually it all goes away. There is no permanent record. There is no eternal legacy. The universe doesn't keep score. Now, some people find this depressing, but I find it incredibly freeing. It means you don't have to carry this imaginary burden of making your life matter to people who don't exist yet. It means you're free to focus on what actually matters, which is the quality of your actual experience and the actual effects you have on actual people and actual time. Think about the people who have mattered most in your life. Your parents, if you were lucky enough to have good ones. A teacher who believed in you. A friend who was there when you needed them. A partner who loved you. Do you care whether anyone in the future knows their names? Of course not. What matters is what they did, how they made you feel, how they changed you. The value of what they gave you doesn't depend on whether it's recorded in a history book. And that's what you can do too. You can be that person for someone else. You can be the one who listens, who helps, who teaches, who loves, who makes someone's life better in a real, concrete way. And the beautiful thing is, this is available to everyone. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be special. You don't have to accomplish some great feat. You just have to be present and attentive and kind to the people around you. You just have to do your work well, whatever your work is, and treat people decently and try to understand things clearly. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Here's another way to think about it. Every moment you're alive, you're participating in the universe's process of organizing itself into more and more complex forms. You're part of the universe trying to understand itself. You are quite literally made of stardust, atoms that were forged in the cores of dying stars billions of years ago, and those atoms have organized themselves into a configuration that can think about dying stars. That's already miraculous. The fact that you get to experience anything at all is already the whole prize. And when you interact with other people, when you share ideas, when you collaborate on something, when you love someone, you're creating these incredibly complex, beautiful patterns of energy and information exchange. You're making the universe more interesting, more organized, more aware of itself. And this happens whether or not anyone writes it down, whether or not anyone remembers. The happening itself is the value. You know, I think this obsession with being remembered comes from a deep fear of death, a fear of not existing. We think that if people remember us, we somehow continue to exist in their minds. But that's not really existing. That's just information in someone else's brain, and they're going to die too eventually. And then where are you? No, the way to deal with death is not to try to cheat it through memory or legacy. The way to deal with death is to really fully live while you're alive, to be so completely engaged with the present moment, with learning, with loving, with experiencing, that you're not wasting your precious limited time worrying about an imaginary future that you won't be around to see. And let me tell you something else. Even if you are remembered, even if you're one of the tiny fraction of people whose names survive, what's remembered is almost never what you thought was important. History is strange that way. The things you worked hardest on might be forgotten. Some offhand comment you made might be what people remember. You have no control over it. So even from a purely strategic perspective, trying to craft your legacy is almost certainly futile. You can't predict what future people will value or remember. All you can do is focus on what you value right now, what seems important and true and beautiful to you in the actual moment you're living in. I'll tell you what I think is really important. Understanding things, really understanding them, not just memorizing facts, but getting to the heart of how they work, teaching others what you understand, being honest about what you don't know, treating people with respect and kindness, doing your work as well as you can, not for glory, but because sloppy work offends your sense of craftsmanship, finding joy in the process of discovery, in the process of creation, in the process of connection with other people. These things matter in a real, immediate, tangible way. They make your actual life better while you're living it. They make other people's lives better, and the effects ripple outward, even if no one can trace them back to you. You know what's really haunting? It's not that people won't remember you in 200 years. What's haunting is the idea that you might spend your whole life trying to be remembered instead of trying to actually live, that you might sacrifice real joy, real love, real understanding for the sake of an imaginary legacy, that you might miss the incredible, improbable, miraculous fact of being alive and conscious and able to experience the universe because you're too worried about whether future strangers will know your name. That's the real tragedy. So here's my answer to the question. No, almost certainly no one will remember you in 200 years, and that's perfectly fine. It's exactly as it should be. You are not here to be remembered. You're here to experience, to learn, to love, to create, to help, to understand. You're here to be part of the universe's brief experiment in consciousness. You're here to have whatever effect you can have on the people and things around you in the time you have. And when you're done, the atoms that made you up will go on to be part of other things, other configurations, other forms. The energy you added to the system will continue to propagate in ways you can't trace and don't need to trace. And that's enough. That's beautiful. That's exactly how it should be. Stop worrying about your legacy. Start paying attention to your life. Stop trying to be remembered. Start trying to be present. Stop thinking about what you're going to leave behind. Start thinking about what you're experiencing right now. Because this moment, right now, this is the only moment you actually have. This is the only place where you actually exist. And it's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything.